found that the male employees opt for flexibility even more than the female employees. The female employees have in fact felt hesitant to take those flexible policies because they feel they'll be viewed negatively and they'll be again questioned on the commitment to their careers. The men are happy to take advantage of the telecommuting and all of that. And thirdly, about your question also, ma'am, Citibank realized, they did actually a countrywide survey on performance appraisals, and they realized that women who were getting back to work were consistently being evaluated lower for the performance, and it could highly likely be because of the bias of the manager. So they made a nationwide policy that any woman who's gotten back to her career will get an automatic one grade bump in her evaluations. So there are companies who are working very hard to take care of both the problems that you were mentioning.
Okay, thanks for that. Aparna, you want to add?
Can I quickly add?
Please go ahead.
First, to your question on the maternity, return from maternity and so on. In 3M, we have seen this happening, and the way we are correcting it is when we do our year-end reviews, right? We do kind of 6 monthly checks, once middle of the year and once at the end of the year on grade versus pay, average grade of women versus average grade of men. What are the ratings given to women who have taken maternity leave and come back and so on. So those things are quite constantly checked, and as business partners in HR, we are trained to go back and ask those questions. Now, it does lead to situations where you have a bad performer who has taken maternity leave and the supervisor is hesitant to give that hard rating that needs to be given. But then you need to coach them, it's the performance that's important, you know, and explain that. So that's one point. On the other piece which you brought up, we have made it a point to ensure all our policies, whether it's flexibility, whether it's work from home, time off, anything it may be, are gender neutral. That is the only way it will work. You know, and even our Women's Leadership Forum try and bring in as many men as possible. And initially we had, external speakers coming in and giving talks about, how they overcame challenges and so on. And beyond a point, we realized we can't keep doing this anymore. So now we are kind of, even those topics and whatever we do from the WLF is also extremely gender neutral, bringing up everybody's environment, improving the work environment for everyone, making life easier and more flexible for everybody. So everyone gains, because otherwise there will be this us versus them, which happens in our mind. So we need to be very careful to avoid that. You're right.
Let me add one more data point. I think the tone and the culture for having a fair and equitable climate has to be set right at the top, right? And I think the way, and I can share what I do for my business unit, just like Aparna mentioned, we have mid-year appraisal. In fact, we're going to quarterly, views of, set your goals. They can be, you can renew your goals every quarter, take feedback and do that. But one of the things that we do on a quarterly, 6 monthly and an annual basis is to do slices of data and say how people are performing. And we do a very specific, diversity split by men and women to say how are men and women performing by location, by job roles, right, by their designation in the organizations as well. That's one part. The second part, which is in terms of checks and balances to your question, the second part is more in terms of keeping a very keen eye on women who have come back, whether they worked for 4 months in a year, 3 months in a year, or 12 months in a year. Their appraisal should not have any impact in terms of the time that they devoted to the organization. But what you have to appraise the men and women is on how they did it. Because at least in IBM, we work on high performance culture. Gender is separate, but your performance is first. So you're going to be equally weighed in terms of performance, right? And we do that even when we go for recruitment to colleges. Given an option, if both a man and a woman passed a test, passed an interview, the preference is to hire a woman. But the fact is that there is no quota system. You have to be at the same performance level to get picked up. So given that, I think the tone of checks and balances, the way the leadership, walks the talk or walks the walk is important to make sure that those kind of biases don't creep in. Because somewhere it takes a brand hit, the organization brand building takes a hit, and employees don't want to be with you, right?
Thank you for that. I'm just going to give you a perspective from Schneider, which is pretty similar to what Aparna and Monica just stated. So, and that will address both the questions that were raised. The champion for diversity is our global CEO, so he's the champion for us. We're one of the front runners in terms of even signing United Nations Women Empowerment Principles, and he's really the torchbearer for this movement. And it cascades down to our country president at the India level, who's the champion for us at the India level. So therefore, to your point, it has to be driven from the top. The commitment from management is important. If you want the D&I agenda to be successful, it has to be integrated with your people practices. There is no other option. So in Schneider, we have a rigorous practice of salary equity. So we ensure that equitable pay for equal position. It doesn't really matter if you're a male or a woman, it has to be equal. Then we've put checks and balances for all our people processes, be it talent review. So when we are doing that process, if there is a woman there, is she in the pipeline? If not, why? Please call out the reasons. So that's another example for you. During promotion, we also do analysis of average tenure, male versus a woman. So if not, why? Nowhere do we say that we need to compromise on competency. That's not the idea. But sometimes you need to put this in place because a particular section has not been treated in the past. So you need to ensure that they come to that level. The leveling field has to be equal in my mind. So yeah, so that's what we do in Schneider, and it has to be driven from the top, and I think all of us have been saying that. So I hope it answers your question, both of you. Adil, I'm going to direct the next question to you. While we in our mind think that we're doing a lot, right, when we talk about this subject, and the organizations are doing a lot, but clearly speaking, look at how the audience has responded. What's your take on it, and what do you feel that the organizations need to do? What could be the next step forward for this agenda, in your mind?
Yeah, I think it has to come from both sides. It's extremely important. And I'd like to quote a gentleman called Mike Gamson. Mike Gamson is Vice President for Sales at LinkedIn. And he recently said that I don't embrace diversity because it's a business need. I embrace diversity because I like winning. And that's essentially the end game, right? You're in the business to win. You're in the business to make meaning and to make impact. So while the organizations rally their troops and do all they can to build sustainable policies, which encourage workforce, I think the workforce also is kind of coming in, charging in, and they want to be a part of meaningful conversations, meaningful careers. They want, at the end of the day, people of this generation, especially the millennials and the Gen Y and Gen Z, which is coming up, they want to create a dent in the universe, like Steve Jobs once said. And if you want to put a dent in the universe, then there has to be that fire in the belly in you to go and make that happen. So I'll give you another example of organization going to great lengths, really, to ensure that they have great people and they don't let go of them. So Netflix recently entered India, right? And Netflix is one of these amazing companies in the US, especially to work for. They have a policy, which is a maternity policy, wherein they give you a 1-year maternity policy. But I was not like thrilled about that. I mean, okay, that's there, and there are organizations which are giving you 6 months maternity policy. Netflix also allows you to take 1-year paternity policy. So the new father, you're a new father, you can still take a 1-year paid paternity policy. You'll be paid in full. The other thing is this also applies to adoption. Because a lot of parents want to adopt kids. This also applies to this. At the end of the day, also when it comes to Gen Y and Gen Z, which are growing up in this digital generation, somebody tweeted this the other day, and I could relate to it completely. They said there are 3 types of people in this world. 1, people who make things happen. 2, people who watch things happen. And 3, people who wonder what happened. So the question is, we need to ask ourselves, what is it that we want to be in this world? If you want to make things happen, organizations are doing their bit, but we as mature leaders who have a vision need to put a plan into place and say, how am I going to execute on this vision? And 2, do I have clear visibility on who I want to work for? And in what role and what capacity? And how can I put a plan in place which is a win-win for myself and for the organization? I think that is when we're actually thinking like mature leaders.
Adil, you also raised a very important point, which is on being equitable in the organization. To some of you there, when you put policies in place, ensure that it's for both the gender. You have to take both genders along, be it paternity, be it adoption leave, be it working from home. So these are things which are not just there for women, but they're there for everyone. Looking at, and going back to what Adil mentioned earlier, which is your workforce is changing, your trends are changing, so you need to ensure that you provide an equally supportive environment to both the genders. Aparna, a quick take from you. So while we've spoken about what the organizations are doing, I think women also have a role to play. Right? If we want to succeed, if we want our dreams to come true, we also need to take a step forward. A quick take from you on what women need to do.
Sure, thanks. So three things, I think. The first is displaying professionalism when handling, things like maternity or the need for leave, the need to take off for a longer time for, I don't know, board exams or whatever else it may be. But let me specifically take the example of maternity because it's a longish leave. As a professional, right, any professional who wants to take time off from work, the more planful you are about it, right? The easier you make it for the organization, the better it is. And the easier it is for the organization to accept that. One of the great fears that organizations have is this person is going to go off on leave and how are we going to handle the situation. But if you make it easier, if you get as much of your work done before you're going on leave, if you're very clear about when you're going to be coming back and stick to that plan, assuming there are no other unforeseen circumstances, one, it makes it easier for you. Second, it makes it easier for the organization. And third, when we're really trying to drive more women at work, everyone's watching. Everyone is watching how each and every woman handles these kind of cases. So the more of us who are professional about it, who take, display that we are taking our work seriously, the better it is. It becomes easier for the organization to handle this piece. The second piece is, we tend to beat ourselves up about glass ceiling and work-life balance and I can't handle it and just set it aside. There are different stages we go through in life. Sometimes you'll be able to focus more on work, sometimes it's less. I think we should just deal with it. It is what it is, and move ahead. And if we don't allow it to strain us mentally, we can probably get a whole lot more done. The third piece is all about supporting each other, supporting other women at work, and I think that's critical. I think there was recently, Madeleine Albright was talking in one of the speeches that Hillary Clinton gave as part of her campaign. And she said, there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women. Now, she then apologized for her statement and wrote this really nice, interesting article, right, which came out explaining why she said that. And she said, when she was active as Secretary of State, which was sometime in the 1970s, 80s, I think, the issues that came up were work-life balance, glass ceiling, how do I manage home and work, that kind of thing. And even today, it's the exact same issues. So her point is, while the percentage of women at work might have increased, the issues remain pretty much the same, right? And given that, she says, fundamentally not enough has changed, which is why we need to support each other as women and, build each other's capabilities. So I think those would be the three.
Thanks for that.